But his anti-union boss is saying that, oh, this is an example of unions protecting lazy teachers and standing in the way of progress and standing in the way of customer experience.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
Jack from New Jersey recently had a conversation with my very anti-union boss, who was telling a story about a potentially believable complaint about a public school teacher failing his son from an educational perspective, but drawing the absolute worst possible conclusions from the experience. While I strongly believe these situations would be less prevalent if public schools were adequately funded, teachers paid enough, etc., there is a reality of people being failed by the system. What are some thoughts on how a hopefully future parent could handle that kind of situation with solidarity, Hayden?
Okay, so let me make sure I'm understanding the complaint there. They believe that the student was failed to be properly educated by a union representing
by the teacher and his anti-union boss, who, it's a boss, so but his anti-union boss is saying that, oh, this is an example of unions protecting, lazy teachers and they're standing in the way of progress and standing in the way of customer experience or the education for the students, right?
Well, first of all, let's go ahead and make it very clear. A union is not necessarily going to protect a poor worker. What a union does is it gives you wind garden rights. It says that you can't be brought in for discipline or fired without cause. Now, that means that you're going to have to go through the proper channels. Your boss just can't not like you, or a parent can't just complain and say, well, it's the teacher's fault that my child did nothing all year. What that does is it requires there's due process. So just like we have a system of checks and balances, or we should, even within the government, if there's channels that things go through that are fact-checked, that are supposed to be done before a decision is made. The union works not just to protect that worker, but to also protect the students, the faculty, and the climate of the school. So we're not going to base something off one complaint. You would have a due process and a representative there to actually get the facts and give you a voice, to where it's not a situation of he said, she said, and it escalates into a huge disagreement. You have someone there that's representing the best, actually, in that case, for the student and the teacher, and that would be your union representative through your wind garden rights.
Right. And that's, almost exactly what we said a couple of weeks ago when we got a similar question. And Adam, who was a former public school teacher, former teachers union, ostensibly, professional association here in Alabama staffer. And Adam, was there anything that you wanted to make sure that we added to that? I know that you've been kind of quiet during the show. Was there anything you wanted to add to that question?
Yeah, absolutely. Since I was involved in representing workers who were tenured and put up for termination. And let me just say, if management's job is to be management, if there is a worker whose conduct is so awful and egregious, they deserve to be fired. And frankly, it should be awful, egregious conduct that gets you fired and takes away your livelihood. But if, that does happen, and if there's a worker, in this case, a tenured teacher, whose conduct is so bad, but yet they can't be terminated, that sounds like a problem with management. That sounds like management is lazy or incompetent or unable to follow due process, because there's not a union in this country and probably in the world that I'm aware of that enshrines the right to poor conduct in a contract, right? No union says, we want our employees to be able to behave badly at work, to not show up on time, et cetera, et cetera. But it's management's job to be management and to follow due process, to discipline workers according to policy and contract. So, that's what I always told folks, when they brought those concerns to me about protecting a lazy or incompetent teacher. The only way they're protected is if their administrator is more lazy and more incompetent than the teacher in question, right? Everybody is entitled to due process, or should be entitled to due process. you're talking about taking away someone's livelihood, their ability to feed their family. It's not a lot to ask that they be able to produce some documentation.
You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.